Welcome to Texas Country Day podcast. Brian here, and I got a special guest for you in studio today. This is the first podcast we've done in studio. So, not much of a studio. It's just my home office, but we're going to kind of go with it.
You would never know.
Before we get started, just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. Of course, R. Watson Boots, Master Hatters of Texas, Cinco Microphones, Fort Worth Camera. Who am I forgetting here? Texas Select Beverage Company, and Sharp Supply Leather Co. Couldn't do any of this without them. My beard's a mess, but we're going to roll with it. It's been kind of a crazy day. But Kyle, man, you drove up from Austin. You're doing the whole radio tour thing. How's it going?
Yeah, I was telling you I was doing the radio tour. I've never done a radio tour, but no song is out to radio officially, but it's funny how times have changed, you know. It's a digital radio tour.
Sure.
But yeah.
Digital radio. I like that. Digital radio tour. I like it.
Man, you know that drive up 35.
Uh-huh.
But we're here. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to see you.
Well, and we were kind of talking before we got on here. You're known for a lot of things in the industry.
Yeah.
Not so much as a musician, unfortunately. And I listened to, I think I've listened to every song that you have on Apple Music today.
Cool.
And man, it's good. So I don't know why people don't think of you as a musician first.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's weird. Like we were talking about, all I've ever been is a musician. From my perspective, before COVID, I was in a rock band called HIGHDIVE, and there's way more music on Spotify you can check out there. But that's like totally different: pop punk, alternative rock. COVID killed that. I started Texas Toast. Actually, I got hired by a booking agency to start Texas Toast for the purpose of kind of helping grow their brand. And then Helen and I acquired the podcast from them because we didn't want to do what they wanted to do.
Sure.
That was my introduction to Texas country. I started writing a bunch of songs that year, kind of like just getting back into the music. You know, I grew up listening to all sorts of country music.
Who was kind of your idol, I guess, or the guy that you looked up to, or girl you looked up to the most?
I
usually would say guy, but we're in a different world nowadays.
Yeah. So I had a grandpa who grew up growing. Or we would go drive on the back roads and stuff and always listen to 97.1 in Houston or outside of Houston. All the oldies and stuff. I really, really loved Conway. But then kind of like my first intro to like modern country, or I guess at the time, was definitely that Brooks and Dunn Red Dirt Road record. And then the Chicks, man. I they're probably not my favorite band of all time, but I tell people every day that Dixie Chicks are my favorite band.
You know what? That's I don't blame you. I'm old enough to remember when CDs first came out.
I mean, me too.
And when I got my first Sony Discman, it came with like a mail-in rebate for a free Sony CD.
Ah.
And so I sent it in, and like 6 weeks later,
I
got a CD, and it was a mixtape. It was a mixed CD, but it had I remember it had Jewel on there. Like, these hands are made for, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It had some Sheryl Crow on there and stuff like that. Nice. But then my very first CD after that, somebody gifted me through a White Elephant, the Dixie Chicks first album, and then I think I got Blue Clear Sky. But I don't blame you. The original, how could you go wrong with Earl and all that stuff?
Yeah. I think the thing for me with them was the drums were just so different from all the rest of the country stuff. There's a lot of boom, 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 thump and kick drum, and kind of I wouldn't go as far as to say it's influenced by rock or more heavy stuff, but it just kind of made that crossover for me because I was always into rock.
Yeah.
I don't know. And Natalie's voice is just so ballsy and
You made that transition, and I was going to bring it up, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. So, in listening to your music, one thing that for me stood out beyond everything else was the kick drum and the bass line. It hits so hard on your music,
Thank you.
And it's refreshing because I get tired of hearing that kind of that muddy kick drum, and there's just a lot of music out there that has a lot of bleed over in the percussion. That is just, it's for most people, and they don't even hear it.
Right.
I hear it, and you're whoever did your production, wherever you recorded, they did a really good job.
Yeah, I'll give him a shout for sure. So Tim Lightyear, his name's Tim Allen, but his artist name is Tim Lightyear, and he's a great songwriter. He's in I think Cleburne now, but he was in Fort Worth, and we recorded it at Drew Herrickle's studio out in Boyd, Texas, which is just north of here. And Drew plays keys for Cody Jinks. So those dudes helped me bring it together. They made it awesome. Like I said, I come from a more rock background, so those like tight kind of pocket kick patterns and bass lines are always very important in that music. So drew a ton of influence, as you can tell, with this song and the last song that I put out. But yeah, that's cool that you noticed that, because people don't typically, and that's fine, but it's always nice to talk with somebody who like realizes those that thought was put into those things.
Yeah. Well, the new song out is Who's Keeping Score.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that came about, because it's a great song, man.
Thank you, man.
It definitely leans a little bit more towards the rock, I think.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like there was, I don't know if it was just my own ear or if it was intentional. I felt a little bit of the, some cross-Canadian ragweed hint in some of it, just in the style, I guess the best way to put it, the vibe, maybe. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, no, I would say that there's a lot of 90s rock influence in that one. I was never, now I am a huge like classic Red Dirt fan. Like I met the Great Divide guys a couple years ago, and I listened to them all the time, all their old stuff. But when I was writing the song, I was not familiar really with that style of music. So it's funny the crossover there. I think the messaging in the song is very country. It's kind of like sad drinking song. It's about like having these good memories, but then kind of like just like struggling with wanting to forget about regrets or mistakes you've made or things you feel bad about, or also like trying to like live in them and I guess overcome or something. But so that's kind of where that messaging was. It's a waltz, it's a song in 3. So that's kind of country. So with that, when we were doing the recording, it was kind of like, all right, let's add some like pop punk guitar. Let's add some like chugs and, like you said, the bass lines and the kick patterns. And the drums are big on all these songs I'm putting out this year. The drums are they were recorded by my friend Zach Grindle, and he just knocked it out of the park. It's like super rock and roll, but dynamic ups and downs, and I think on this one in particular, the drums really bring this song to life. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I've had it on the station now for, I don't know, since you sent it to me, I think.
Cool.
Whenever we did the podcast with Texas
Thumbs. Yeah.
So it's been, we'll see. Hopefully, maybe it'll show up on the OCMC chart here pretty soon. I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
I'm actually going through the chart right now as we were talking. So
sweet.
Or not as we were talking, but before you got here.
Yeah.
But I did want to take a second. You had a great single that you released back in January, Backseat Driver.
Yeah.
But I wanted to take a second to talk about one of the songs that was on your EP, Working on You.
Oh, wow.
I enjoy the message of that song, but that whole EP kind of, it has I don't know. It has a certain thing about it. Like if you listen to one song, you don't hear it, but you listen start to finish, it kind of feels like it comes a little bit full circle in the vibe of it, not the messaging, but the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Working on You.
I think that EP was definitely a moment in time. So that's probably what you're hearing, the way that kind of came about. But Working on You was almost a song about like me. I don't think I was in a relationship at the time, or maybe I had just gotten out of one, but it was kind of like, it was like maybe what I wanted in a relationship or something from a partner, but I was like singing it from their perspective, or like thinking about the storyline from their perspective about me. It's like, I know I'm a mess. Like I know I'm a piece of work. Like there's lots of work to be done, but I hope you just keep working on me, kind of. But I had to flip the narrative because working on me isn't the same as working on. I get it. But that's cool that you like that one. That's that's like my not in any way comparing it to the amount of success, but I think of it as like my wagon wheel. It's kind of like just kind of shuffle train beat song. So
well, and it's kind of interesting that you talk about dance music and in your music. I was just having a conversation the other day, and a lot of like Texas country that's out there right now. It's not really dance music. It's not stuff you can dance to. So to hear you talk about, you know, the waltz and speed in 3 and stuff like that, it's kind of refreshing. It's just not very, I don't think, super prevalent in a lot of music right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is in the Western swing. It is in some of the more country stuff, but in the more red dirt stuff, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think about it. I don't necessarily intentionally write to fit the dancing thing, but, you know, and like we said already, my music is definitely alternative leaning, so it's not necessarily like dance hall music by any means. Maybe some of those tunes on the first EP, but the new stuff, not so much. But maybe that's, I had never really thought about it, but maybe that's coming from the rock world, because, you know, I played in that scene and wrote music for that style of music for so long. It almost became this game of like, obviously people aren't slow dancing or two-stepping at a rock show, but the goal is to get them to want to move around, not just necessarily, because like we had them at one point just staring at us, like interested in what's happening, but it's like, okay, we need more. What are we, how do we change the song? How do we like, you know, mold the writing to make people want to move around a little bit? So I guess that's maybe where that comes from.
I can see that. That's kind of fun. I was telling my wife the other day that, you know, a lot of music in the country world transitions into a lot of the rock stuff. She goes, no, it doesn't. And I said, yeah, it does. And I said, here's a perfect example. Bluegrass is the punk rock of country.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could take you know, any of the bluegrass bands that are playing some just crazy good stuff, put an electric guitar in their hand and it'll sound like punk rock.
Yep.
It just will. I don't know. You can't convince me otherwise.
No, I agree completely, because it's more about telling a story and getting a message across than it is about like, you know, because the energy's there, and that's what makes people move to both of those types of music. But it's not necessarily like melodic and sway and flowy and stuff in the same way that other, you know, non-bluegrass punk music is. It's kind of cool. I never really put those together.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's her favorite band. It's slipping my mind right now, but they got a song out right now. It's Tiny Wooden Box, and they're from Canada. Why can't I think of it? Anyways, move forward.
Yeah.
But so you got kind of a busy day, man. You got this, and then you're moving on to Gotta Love Texas.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be on that, and you're doing Texas Tailgate with DJ, and where are you finding the energy? Or you just feel like something you gotta do, or what?
Well, you know, I got the song coming out. You know, I'm trying to make the most of these releases. You know, I took off a couple. I mean, I hadn't really pursued my own music per se since like early 2020, and now I've got this stuff, which actually we recorded almost 2 years ago now, so it's finally coming out. But I just want to, you know, get it in as many ears as I can. Like, if I'm driving up from Austin, I might as well hit up all my friends and go talk to everybody while I'm here.
Absolutely,
you know,
man.
If I didn't have a day job, then I would come just do one a day and hang out with everybody.
Well, I mean, I'm happy you're here.
Yeah.
But I just kind of circle back real quick. You were talking about how you come from kind of rock roots, and I was thinking that when I heard this most recent song, it would have been right at home in the heyday of 90s grunge bands. You know, the Green Day, like it would fit there if it was just a little bit harder. Yeah. But it fits in Texas country perfect because it's as mellow as it is. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm seeing this like graph with all these bands in my head, but you're right. It's like 90s, like a mix between Green Day and like maybe some Gin Blossoms. But then like Texas country, you've got these like traditional bands, and then you've got like the Colby Coopers, the Cody Wests, who are like, you know, the incubuses of Texas country, and I love that too. So.
And then you got Colby Cooper, who was doing one thing, and then he comes out with this amazing cover of My Love. Like, what in the world?
It was so good.
And I was talking to, you know, Brady. Is it Brady? Yeah, it's Brady Seals. Brady Seals on TikTok. Because he just re-released the 30th anniversary version of their My Love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they were like 2 weeks apart, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. I think I like Colby's better.
Well, dude, I'm sure you saw that clip I posted just talking about Colby's thing on TikTok, and then Colby like reposted it or whatever, and was just kind of like, hanging on the bus, like chilling, pointing at his Weezer tattoo and stuff. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, that slapped. Like that was probably the best cover I think I've ever heard. It was so good.
Yeah, I first met Colby down at LJT last year. Actually, his signature's on there. That guitar, which nobody else can see, that's actually signed by every band that was at LJT 2023.
Wow, very cool.
Which is kind of cool because there's some signatures on there I don't think I'll ever see again. Gary Pinon and some other ones on there. But
that's awesome.
One of the things that struck me about Colby is he's kind of intense in his performative world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with like them Dirty Roses, very intense on stage, having a party out there, but then they get backstage into the VIP or in the green room, whatever.
Chilling.
Super chill. And I think somebody was talking about Dungeons and Dragons at one point and like what?
That's hilarious.
What?
Yeah. Man, I mean, the musicians are nerds. People don't realize it, myself included. Like, I'm sure you've realized this immediately, but that's totally a thing. Like people think it's all glitz and glam, and I guess maybe Co-Wetzel's the representation of that for us in this scene. But a lot of it's
but what I got from him was super Co-Wetzel out in public, but you get him off stage and he's super shy. Yeah, like a super shy guy. And like two different personalities almost. Stark contrast.
Right.
Which is really cool to see.
I guess maybe people are conserving the energy. I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I honestly have no idea what the difference, or if I do that. Thinking about it as we're talking about all these other people that I've been watching and working around for years. I don't know.
But you had a different view, I think, than a lot of us because you were tour manager for Bree.
Yeah.
And that's a different world from being an artist. Going from being an artist to being the one taking care of an artist and being responsible for the artist. That's a bit of a gear shift, I think. Is it not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny. She would always say that it was like such a different job because it's like a girl and a chihuahua and all this stuff. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say that like working for her was specifically very different than working for any other artist.
Sure.
And I had kind of known, like I had a band in high school that was like a metalcore band, and like we were touring Texas, playing in the tiniest little places to no one, that making no money. Like when we were 16, actually I think the first one I was 15. I told my parents, and they're like, "You don't have a car, dude. How are you going to do that?" It's like, we'll figure it out, and we did. But I guess my point in saying all that is I was kind of tour managing from the beginning. I remember making like spreadsheets, like food budget, just so there wouldn't be arguments about like, hey. No, I'm not going to buy your Taco Bell. Like, you should have brought your own, teenager shit.
Sure.
So I kind of was like building the craft, or like figuring out what was necessary and what was important, for things like that. So I knew what I was getting into, and I had TM'd for a couple other artists on and off. And the guy that I tour manage and manage full time now he's an old friend of mine, and I was TMing for them on and off for over many years while playing in my band. HIGHDIVE. But no, I mean, it was definitely a different perspective, but I think the main difference was like meeting the Texas country people that I didn't know existed. Like I always joke, but I legitimately didn't know who Wade Bowen was like 3 years ago. I knew Randy and like the big people. And then I knew a handful of like Shane Smith and stuff. Cause like my brother went to A&M and we'd go see him at Harry's and stuff.
Sure.
I think that was the main thing, kind of reacclimating. Like I'm used to terrible door deals, like not getting paid anything, nobody coming to the shows, and unless you're like a big band. But it's just the difference between the country world and everything I knew before that is vastly different. But otherwise, like the mechanics of the show is,
basically the same.
The same, yeah. And Bree's needs were very similar to, I imagine, in any other artist. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it wasn't trying to like circle back around away from your artistry, but
no, all good.
You've had quite a vast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people in this industry that do a lot of different things, right? But to be an artist, tour manager, podcast producer, that's kind of an interesting mix for me to see. So,
yeah, man. Well, like I was saying, so our friends, or I think you know those guys, but Texas Music Reviews, they tagged me in a post the other day and said industry professional, and like I was joking about it when I got here, but it seems like a lot of people know me as an industry guy, which is awesome because that's what I've always wanted to be and what I've worked towards for so long. And now I'm definitely not tour managing in the Texas country scene, and I'm not on the road as much anyways these days. But, you know, I do all that, and I do graphic design, and I do a bunch of video and photo stuff like you. I've kind of just, ever since like I graduated high school early, moved out of my parents' house, moved to Austin, like went to trade school for audio engineering. And ever since then, I've just like done every job I can. Like I worked at a place that made like high-end live audio equipment, like PAs and subwoofers and stuff, like super, super expensive stuff. Like I don't even know if anything ever sold while I worked there because it was so expensive. I worked for like a lighting production company. I worked security at like all the big venues in Austin for years.
This was like the plan, to be in the
to do something, and it still is, you know, like I always come back to music, and so that's the thing that means the most to me. I get the most out of it. Just, you know, writing songs that people want to hear is really fulfilling for me. You know, like I've always got like a catchy sensibility in my mind when I'm writing songs, just because that's what I like to hear too. But yeah, I would say the plan is to make myself known as someone who is related to music.
I mean, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Nothing
wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Well, once again, the single is, and I got it here on my, I'm horrible with names.
Okay.
The single is Who's Keeping Score?
Mm.
It's amazing.
Thank you, man.
Is it out streaming yet? Not yet.
March 15th. I don't know when this comes out, but yeah.
So we got about another week and a half. So
yeah,
from today. But
March
15th, go to Spotify, go to Apple Music, SoundCloud, wherever you get your music, and
please do.
And
give me a follow.
Check out Kyle Garrett. Give him a follow. And
yeah,
I take it you're on all the social medias.
Yeah.
So it's like Kyle Garrett Music or just Kyle Garrett?
Kyle Garrett Music on Instagram and Facebook. My website's kylegarrettmusic.com. You can find tour dates and all that stuff. We put out a cool music video for Backseat Driver a little while back with my lovely lady. And then we'll have a video coming for Who's Keeping Score in probably about a month. We're still filming bits of it, finishing it all off, but it's going to be really cool. So
that's cool. Yeah, I saw the music video on Apple Music, so
yeah,
it's kind of cool that they have like a mixture on there.
Man,
I
the
just started using
awesome.
Spotify.
Yeah.
So I was never a Spotify user, and it's Texas music has forced me into Spotify because everybody uses Spotify.
Yeah. It's all about that monthly listener number.
I know that, all about that speedometer, I guess. Is what I call
Literally, yeah. Man, it's rough.
Well, I think you're going to stick around and play some music for us. But, anything else you want to add to the? Just that you wanted to get out there that I forgot to ask?
I mean, if you guys are, if you like the songs, come see a show. I don't know when this comes out, but I'll be playing March 16th. We've got our Texas Toast podcast, 3rd birthday jam at the Do-Si-Do Whiskey Bar. It's going to be myself, Paige Lewis, Charlie McCabe, and then we're kicking it off with a live podcast recording with Rich O'Toole. And then if you're in this DFW area, I'm opening up for my buddy Jarrett, Ray Reddick at Oscars on April 25th with the band. So that'll be a fun one.
That'll be a cool one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when? Oscars the 25th?
That's April 25th. Yeah. So that's a Thursday night. And there's quite a few other shows on the calendar too, but those are two that I'm really looking forward to. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for stopping by. And
yeah, man. Thanks
super glad to have you.
You bet.